everybody. Welcome into Hail Yes, a Detroit Free Press podcast about University of Michigan athletics. I'm Tony Garcia, Michigan football and basketball writer for the Free Press, joined by our Big Ten insider, Reiner Sabin. He was snooping around East Lansing yesterday while I was in Ann Arbor, which reminds me, Reiner, have you decided which spring game you will be at this Saturday? For our purposes, the Michigan game, the Maize and Blue game will be at noon, televised on Fox. But Reiner, you cover both programs. They are both on Saturday. You're good. I don't know if you can be at both. Where will you be?
I'm going to be in Ann Arbor with you, Tony.
Hey, there we go. Out of way.
So, yeah, it should be exciting. I don't know, actually, if it really will be exciting because it is a spring game after all. And, you know, it's hard to kind of get enthused about that. But, you know, there should be some compelling storylines that arise from it.
Oh, plenty, which is sort of what we will get into in the second half of this show. Busy show today. The plan was originally as to just sort of talk spring game, right? After 6 weeks, we're gonna do a spring draft and just draft our own teams, just like the players and coaches just did, and just sort of break it down, get in a little chance to get into just the team at large and what this may look like on Saturday. But then there was some news yesterday, Reiner, which is now going to lead our show. And this will be the first half of the show. Then the second half, we will still do an abridged version of our spring draft, and we can get into that. But Reiner, Michigan and the NCAA have come to an agreement. Michigan accepted punishment by the NCAA for the first of two investigations that began in 2023, this one into recruiting violations and sanctions. I guess let's just get to the point of it. The punishment is 3 years probation, an undisclosed fine, and also currently undisclosed recruiting penalties. I'm not sure exactly what recruiting penalties mean, but Reiner, that was the nature of the language that the NCAA sent out. Your thoughts, and then we'll sort of get into all the, maybe a little bit more the minutia.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to have any kind of concrete takeaway from it because the ruling was so vague, or the announcement was so vague, I should say. And so it's kind of strange and doesn't really provide any clarity about really what the long-term effect is going to be on Michigan. But it adds to kind of a rough offseason so far for Sherrone Moore, and as they're transitioning out of the Jim Harbaugh era, and yet there's a lot that is left in Harbaugh's wake. Continues to be felt in Ann Arbor, and some of it kind of goes back to 3 years ago. It makes you wonder about did Harbaugh declare his intentions when he said that they were going to, do it or die trying to try to win the Big Ten? And that mean that something was going on there as far as, were they willing to win at all costs? And if that was the case, I mean, they won the national championship. So do Michigan fans really care, considering that they achieved their end goal, and maybe the ends did justify the means in the eyes of the coaching staff and the fan base.
Right. And I'm not sure if we got, and I would almost go as far as to say, I don't think we got any clarity on that one way or the other, right? With this ruling provided nothing on that. And you talk about how it is relatively vague. I'm not sure if and when we're going to get much more clarity than this, Reiner, because for those who don't remember, Jim Harbaugh was suspended for 3 games at 2 separate points last season. This was the first of those instances. Last summer, when we were driving down to Indianapolis, it seemed that Michigan and the NCAA, Jim Harbaugh and the NCAA, had come to sort of a negotiated resolution for a 4-game suspension. That would have been that, and then maybe 1 game for Sherrone Moore and Grant Newsome, and that really would have been that. The punishment would have been served, and they would have moved on. But Harbaugh, as the story goes, sort of dug in his heels. He would not agree to some level 1 violations that he was knowingly misleading investigators, right? When they came asking questions about this investigation, he said that he was being honest and forthright. They said no, and that you were not. That's why he got a level 1 violation. And now, Reiner, that he is gone and in the NFL, Michigan, who was and Saints Ono and the Regents and the AD and Ward and everyone who was backing him in the whole story the whole time, right? Now that he's gone, they don't have all that much of a problem saying, yeah, maybe there were, we can agree to these violations. That stuff, I mean, Jim's like the level 1 is, you don't think there was some.
I would disagree with that. It was the way that they were backing him was because of the whole cheating scandal at that point. But it was Ward and the school that suspended him to help mitigate potential punishments for this investigation, the NCAA. Yeah. And I know for, talking to people who were close to Harbaugh, that Harbaugh was annoyed by that. Like, he did not like being suspended by the school. Like, again, he felt, he kept on arguing that he had nothing to be ashamed of regarding this, and that, even at the end of the national championship game, after all that, everything happened, the Connor Stalions affair, this investigation, all that, he brazenly kind of told the media in the post-game news conference, we're innocent. And there's a lot of people who just clearly didn't believe that. I don't even think Michigan necessarily believed that, because again, this agreement
shows that they did not believe that. Michigan admitted. Sorry, Reiner, I didn't mean to step all over your point if that's where you were going.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I mean, I think that's the point I was trying to make, was that really back in, even in the summer, and that's where the two separated. I mean, I think, and you kind of started to see, it was Harbaugh on one side, and then it was Michigan on the other, and they were kind of fighting this battle and separately with the NCAA, and then somehow they came together during the Connor Stalions thing, and then now they've, again, veered off in their separate direction once they ultimately parted ways this January. And there was not going to be a contract extension and a continuation between the two of them.
I mean, the Stallions and the sign stealing thing, that's the ultimate lightning rod rallying point, right? For an us against the world sort of mentality. But I want to read, Reiner, what I saw as the key passage from the NCAA's announcement as it pertains to what we were just talking about, and guilty or not guilty, right? So the negotiated resolution also involved the school's agreement that the underlying violations demonstrated a head coach responsibility violation, and the former football head coach failed to meet his responsibility to cooperate with the investigation. The school also agreed that it failed to deter and detect the impermissible recruiting contacts and did not ensure that the football program adhered to the rules for non-coaching staff members.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they didn't reinvent the cheating wheel. This is not the worst scandal in the world, but this is in writing. Michigan saying, yes, we did not follow all the rules as they're written. That's what this says. But then they weren't saying that. And yes, they were trying to punish Harbaugh at the time, but they weren't really. If you remember, they never spoke. They never spoke out, and they never said that they didn't do anything wrong last summer, as we were talking about, because I think they kind of know that, well, there is a little bit of evidence that there were some recruiting improprieties.
No, there was just that. I mean, again, I wrote in 2021 when the whole Ryan Osborne situation came, where Taylor Upshaw, revealed that he was coaching a position group. I mean, it was pretty blatant. And this came on the heels of, again, Harbaugh making a big stink with Ohio State, having a coach, pictured working during the COVID-19 ramp-up period. And here was Harbaugh. I mean, again, it was kind of a hypocritical stance, in retrospect, because, again, I mean, he was having analysts that were, performing coaching duty. And, that's an abused rule across the board, all across college football. I mean, any program probably has some degree of that going on, where an analyst is doing more than that. He should. And, in fact, I think that, the NCAA, the coaches association, the AFCA, is looking to actually eliminate that rule and basically allow as many accountable coaches as you can. But the point is that Harbaugh was arguing that again, other people were violating rules, and here he was violating, and that's where the hypocrisy kind of came in. And
that's not the only time.
And then he was very defiant in his defense about not cooperating. And, you started to get the sense that the cheeseburger thing was really coming out that narrative was coming out from his end. That was not something necessarily from Michigan's thing, because they clearly, obviously didn't see it as a nothing burger, because they ultimately agreed to the thing. They really weren't fighting it. In fact, they actively tried to mitigate potential penalties, again, by suspending Jim Harbaugh and Sharon Moore. Sharon Moore was docked a game. And so it was something that they actually took seriously.
Well, Jim Harbaugh's shown to be inconsistent before, right? I mean, he was when Michigan State had the tunnel incident at Michigan, and a lot of players got into a fight with a couple of Michigan players. He storms out with a letter calling for swift justice and this, that, and the other, right? Meanwhile, nobody knew at that time Mozzie Smith was being charged for a felony for gun possession. Mm-hmm. Right at the time, and then when that reaches the light of day, same month, couple months, then he's calling for more of a due process, right? Which is everybody's going to back their guy, but all we're saying is consistency, right? That's what this comes down to, and Jim Harbaugh was not sort of being consistent. However, his end of this is not done, right? Like so another layer to this entire saga is 5 current and former coaches agreed to 1-year show cause orders, essentially that all the punishments apply to them as well, even no matter where they go, etc. But one undisclosed coach, did not. Doesn't take a couple guesses to say who that was. And Tom Mars, Jim Harbaugh's attorney, I texted him yesterday, and they were talking about he talked about how they sent an offer, and it's just not going to happen. So they are going to still have to play this thing out.
Yeah, and I don't know what ramifications it's going to have. The NFL. I mean, there was a report. I think NFL Network had a report saying that that he could get actually punished via the NFL because they're trying to prevent people from pulling a Pete Carroll. Where he dodged NCAA sanctions by leaping to the NFL, or the impact of it. And Jim Tressel had that situation where, he was hired as an analyst, but I mean, again, very backroom kind of position, not as forward facing as head coach of the Seahawks, number 2 market franchise, basically with LA. And so it's a much different deal. I mean, but there is obviously his case is still seems to be pending, and who knows what's to come from the Stallion saga and the case there.
Yeah, so I guess Reiner, that's a good place to take this, because I think we've sort of now discussed it. This investigation is not new. What Michigan was being investigated for, right? Just being accused of having coaches monitor practice via Zoom during a dead period, analysts on the field in a coaching capacity, and texting recruits during a dead period. These are not new charges. It's just now there's sort of a bow on this portion of it for Michigan. But I guess my remaining questions for you, and I guess the only thing left that I would be thinking, right, as a fan, is like, how do you think the fans feel about this news? What do you think? I know you sort of said the ends justify the means, right? But is it just done? Is it just done? You know what I mean?
I personally don't think that, and I hate that. It's the whole Machiavellian idea, but like the fact is that I think the fans see that. I mean, because ultimately you can't take away the feeling that you got from a national championship. And so that's why people do break rules, because it leads to success, and they can, get shortcuts to where they want to go. And, it's up to the NCAA to mete out a real punishment to prevent programs from doing that. And the problem with the NCAA enforcement is that they don't punish people in real time. And so they're trying to kind of now punish individual violators. And so that's where the Harbaugh thing comes in, I think, and the coaches who were impacted by the investigation. But, it's hard to mitigate something after the fact. I mean, you have to kind of get in front of it. And the NCAA's investigative process just goes on too long to create that. And so, teams are going to probably continue to bend the rules, if not just outright break them, because, at the end of the day, they're the ones holding the championship, and that's what people remember. I mean, they remember Michigan won the championship.
And Reiner, that brings me to another question that I had, or that I was looking to sort of understand when this ruling came down. I was wondering if the level of this punishment was going to give any sense to what we might be able to expect from the next investigation, right? The Connor Stalions investigation, the sign stealing one. I don't know that this gave me any sense of, that's going to be, I would imagine that is going to be a more significant punishment, or there will be more serious ramifications, unless they can really do end up painting it as this lone wolf thing, which they tried to. But then you have the layers of maybe there's boosters, this Uncle T character involved, right? So we don't need to open the whole Connor Stalions thing. My point that I'm not sure I'm making is I was waiting for this to see how hard or soft they came down to say, like, oh boy, like it's going to get worse or better. Yet again, which is sort of the theme of this ruling, I don't know that I got that.
Yeah, Tony, I mean, it's hard to know what is really going to happen here. I mean, again, are they going to get a double secret probation now? I mean, where, are they going to punish, Stalions individually and give him like such a significant show cause that he can't work in college sports again to that level, and focus on the individual violator potentially? That's the ultimate question. I mean, talking to a former compliance director, he again made the point that, again, the NCAA has kind of moved off the kind of punishing programs and the future student athletes in them, so that they would feel the brunt of the punishment from a violation that occurred a couple of years ago or a few years ago. So, I mean, they're focusing more on the individual violators themselves. And so, in that case, I mean, it would probably seem to, focus on Stalions and anybody who was involved in that from a football staff support, standpoint. But it's hard to see if the NCAA sticks to that kind of method of punishment, whether they're actually going to hit the program really hard too.
And perhaps we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit, because Michigan's yet to even receive a draft notice of allegations, right? Not that it's not coming, but we're just not sure what it even looks like yet, right? Who is being charged with what? So how wide they're going to take it. And so there is likely, the short answer was probably there is no way to know, and one does not determine the other. I mean, they're separate situations, but I mean, they're not entirely separate, right? It's two NCAA investigations into the same program around the same time. So we're not comparing two entirely different things here. Reiner, is there any final point that you feel we have not made about where this stands? I mean, 3 years probation, a little bit of money, and who knows what the recruiting violations are. Like that's kind of where we're at. And then now they go on, and probation means don't get in trouble again. And your point was, well, we know another NCAA investigation's coming. All right, does that count as trouble? I would imagine no, just because as far as this probationary period goes, because they weren't on probation when those sanctions came down, and to be charged with that and separately is double jeopardy, and I think not legal.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wouldn't really make much sense that this would affect the probation, because I mean the probation is really about how you conduct yourself in the future, and so and trying to keep a compliant department or a program going forward. And so if this already happened, how does that? But then I mean that also creates the idea. I mean, so what's the dual simultaneous punishments going on, or like how could this affect that? Because again, I mean, it was weird. I mean, the NCAA kind of intervened. I mean, they kind of alerted the Big Ten about the Stallion situation, thinking that it created an unfair advantage, and the scheme, and alerted the Big Ten, and that's how the Big Ten commissioner Tony Petitti ended up ultimately suspending Harbaugh those final 3 games, and so they clearly thought it kind of, they wanted to affect a punishment in real time, and maybe that's what they'll look at, is like, oh well, we tried, and ultimately, I mean, there's not, they really couldn't do that other than maybe having a postseason ban, which I don't think they would have ever even entertained at that point. And so, like, it's hard to tell what it's going to mean in the future.
Right. Well, what it does mean for now is that, in Ward Manuel's words, he said now they can move forward, at least from the one investigation. So, all right, let's take a quick break and then get to the next order of business. It is a spring game, actual football to discuss. That's next. It's Hail Yes. All right, everybody, welcome back. It is time for our spring football draft, the spring game on Fox at noon, as we said off the top of the show, maize versus blue. It's still not yet clear exactly how the teams were picked this year. I know they often do a draft. It looks like, I saw some videos on social media, Reiner. It looks like coaches sort of drafting the teams, but I don't think anybody asked Steve Casula or Lou Esposito yesterday when we spoke with them, 2 of the tight ends coach, defensive line coach, both newer in the mix. So maybe we'll get some clarity on that. But how we are going to draft our teams is 7-on-7. Each side, we each will take 7 offense, 7 defense, and we fought backstage to the death. Clearly I won. That's why you're still hearing my voice. So I will go first. Reiner, any final words before I show that I'm a great GM? I don't know. I'm trying to chirp you. I got nothing.
Go ahead.
No, I was trying to chirp you. I didn't really have anything. Do you have any final words? Do you think? What is your confidence level on putting this team together? I feel pretty good about this.
I feel like you could do a good job. Mm-hmm.
No, I admit yours. Well, thank you for me. Yeah. I think you could do a good job too, my friend.
Okay, well, thank you. So that's kind of, I feel it's just like you do.
All right, riveting. Okay. Well, I am going to go first. And to be honest, I haven't given this a ton of thought, but I have thought about this person for a while. Mason Graham. I am going to take Mason Graham with my number 1 overall pick. Just a beast of a human. I think the most pound for pound talented player on the team. I want someone who I know is wreaking havoc, and that's Mason. So give me Mason Graham, number 1.
That's probably who I would have picked number 1. So we were thinking along the same lines.
Okay.
I was hoping you didn't pick him. So I'm going to go Will Johnson, another cornerstone type player. So shutdown guy.
Since we're not snake drafting, I do feel this is a little bit of an advantage. Getting the next pick again, but I will not complain. This is the format we agreed to. I can't believe I'm getting them both. I will take Kenneth Grant as my number 2 pick, and I feel really good about whatever else happens beyond that. Right? I mean, that's where Michigan. That's where this Michigan team I mean, it's got to be the number one strength of this entire team is literally those two on the interior.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then I'm going to pick Colston Loveland.
Nice. Just you think? I mean, let's a little explanation.
Yeah, again, because I mean the tight end. I mean, as far as like top level players, I mean he's probably the best player on the offensive side. So best available.
Yeah, no, good value there, no doubt. There's a few directions I could go. I think I'm going to take Miles Hinton, left tackle, anchor of the line. I know he was unproven last year, and God, it's just one of those. He has so much, as they say, God-given ability, right? It's just you wish you could just put a V8 motor in him and make sure it's on all the time because he's got all the talent in the world. But I'm the coach of this team, and I feel confident that I can get the most out of him. So, Miles.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean I don't know. I mean, it's tough. We're starting to kind of decide who beyond the kind of best available. It's like what position of need. Okay, so.
So on offense, it is 3 offensive linemen, 3 skill, and a quarterback. On defense, it is 3 defensive linemen, and then 4 in the back 7, sort of. So linebackers and secondary. Sorry, Reiner. Should have said that off the top.
I'm going to go with Derek Moore on for edge rusher. So just because I think need a quality person to kind of push the pocket.
No doubt. And then because he is a very solid edge, I want to shore up my protection. See, this is exactly my opportunity to put my money where my mouth is. You guys have heard me talk about what I would do as a GM, right? What do I always say? You build through the trenches. And I would like Josh Preby. We have 3 offensive linemen. It's a unique formation. I know he can play multiple positions. He'll probably be our center, I feel. And so him next to Miles, they said they're learning to do that little song and dance. I like how they might move together. So feel good about Preby.
Yeah, I'm going to go with I think Greg Crippen. Center is a pretty important position. So anchors the offensive line, calls out the protections, arranges things a little bit. So I'm going to go with him for that.
I think that's a great pick. I would have loved Crippen on my side, and I think he could be really key for this team this year. Don't you think? I mean, a forgotten guy because he's been passed up by Olu a couple years ago and then Drake Nugent last year. But, yeah. I mean, Remington Outland Award guys, right? National champions, NFL picks. These aren't nobodies. These are the best, 2 of the best centers in college football the last couple of years. And Crippen's been going against them, and he's been going against Mason and KG all day, every day for 3. This is his 3rd year now. So I like that. I like that pick. And I can't believe I'm doing this. We will get to some skill guys, I promise. But I think he will be the next best offensive lineman on this team. Gio El Hadi. Gio El Hadi he's a mean MF. He's a nice guy, but you can tell he's got some dog in him. I'm curious to see how he plays this year.
Yeah, no, I think that's a solid pick. I mean, he's been used as a reserve, come in and had a couple starts here and there, spot starts. So I mean, he's been counted on the last couple of years, and now has a real chance to be a big factor on the line.
I think you're up again then.
Well, I'm going to go with the best available quarterback, I think, or the person that seems to be getting the most buzz. I'm going to go with Alex Orji. Try to get some sizzle in the offense, I guess, from a running standpoint. And
doesn't that kind of say everything about this Michigan team? That what pick was that? way late in this draft that the quarterback was taken, and because it's kind of, if in a normal draft you have to take quarterback with number one overall with a college team, right? Or most of the time, unless you don't know who really the quarterback is going to be or don't have a great feeling about one of the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And this roster is loaded on defense too, obviously.
Right. And now that does put, I not knocking it, but I see it in sort of, you got to look at it in, or the way I've thought of this is sort of like your fantasy team, right? Are you going quarterback early, or are you going to stack it and then go late, right? Reiner now has his quarterback, so I can take my quarterback with the last overall pick and just keep loading. And Orgy's probably the best option. I was thinking about. I'm not saying that he went the wrong strategy. I was this close to going Orgy over El Hadi last time, but I wanted to see if I could sneak one more in, and I couldn't. So I think you got the front runner at quarterback. There's nobody's going to be mad with that. So that will lead me. I could use, man. Oh, am I going to do it? Oh, yeah, I am. Give me Max Bredesen at fullback. He can flex out to my tight end spot. He can play fullback as well. I am not joking. I am not joking in the slightest. We got Andrew laughing, but behind the scenes,
well, I had to type it out in our little Google document under skill position. So I mean, Max Bredesen is like a brute force, but you don't necessarily consider him a skill guy.
That was my first skill position. God, oh my! People would hate my teams. I now see I can't be a coach. Look, like we'll break the teams down later.
Al Davis is rolling over in his grave.
There's no excitement. But I mean, if I'm being realistic about who I'm going to throw, I mean, I don't have a Roman. I don't have a Cornelia. Like, I don't have Blake. I could have gone another route, but I went Max. So I think I left him for Reiner, but I'll take Max.
I'm going to go with Josiah Stewart. Take care. You're gonna take care of the interior. I'm gonna try to get the two best edge rushers with Moore and Stewart. Josiah Stewart really came on in the second half of the season last year, so he's got a promising future ahead of him potentially with based on what he was able to do last year, and plus with I guess the style of defense, they might be. Bringing a lot more pressure from the edge too, potentially.
Yeah. Without your edge combination, Michigan is not a national champion, right? I mean, it was Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart combining on that submarine on the fourth and goal stop from Alabama. That I think it's got to be the most famous play in Michigan football history now. So. You're catching up on the line. I don't like that. But I still feel okay. I'm going to go back to defense. I feel like this is really, really great value here. Ernest Hausman. He was Mike and Will linebacker. He played both last year. He can play either spot for me, depending on what route I want to go with the rest of my defense. I think he's the best defender left on this team. So, Ernest Hausman.
Good pick. I am going to go with Donovan Edwards.
Yep. It's about time.
Yeah. I mean, again, he had a somewhat disappointing year last year, and then kind of made up for it obviously a little bit in the national championship game with his performance. And I think he's could develop a better rhythm, I guess, as the lead back, maybe if he gets more touches instead of kind of just going in for a series and being the guy and then going out, and with Corum being the lead person. So maybe being the bell cow back, so to speak, he can kind of develop more of a consistency, just based on the number of reps he gets.
Yeah. Well, I think it is safe to say, I mean, it'd be hard to be less efficient, all due respect, than he was for the first 14 games of last year, right? It was 3 yards a touch. And that's just, Donovan is just more explosive Just if you give him enough touches, like you said, right? Like you will. He's a good enough athlete. There will be a hole, and he will break one. And so I look for a little more consistency, so that's why I was staying away. But the home run hitting is there. Oh boy, I didn't really want to let you stack Donovan and Orgy. That's a little tough for me. So I will go back on the offensive side of the ball. I think maybe a little bit of a fan favorite here, Samaj Morgan. Not a big body, obviously, but just I need someone who can play the slot, someone a little quick, a little shifty. I got a few ideas for my last skill position guy, a couple different routes I can go. But I could not, frankly, that was defense. I could not let you have Samaj Morgan as well.
A little finesse to go with your meat and potatoes, rest of your team there.
Hey, that's exactly right. I was worried
someone has to run behind all those guys, right?
Yeah.
Someone has to get open.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I think we're going to have some good balance once we round this team out here. Don't you worry.
I am going to go with, interestingly enough, Marlon Klein.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
I was debating it, but I couldn't.
I am.
Good job.
I'm going pretty much full heavy personnel.
Yeah.
That's going to be a kind of whatever version of 13, 12 personnel or whatever you can try to run and the 7-man offense or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Here and later, I already know my argument, so we'll get a chance to go back and forth at the end and say why we think our teams will win after. Okay, so for my final skill position, I guess I don't need to take him because your skill spots are all taken up. I'll take Jayshawn Barham. I mean, he's trying to run the ball, obviously, and actually. Is that locked in? Yeah, I locked it in. And so, I mean, he's trying. I mean, he's got a 2 tight end set. So I want some big bodies who can handle that. So we'll take the Maryland transfer. Reiner.
I'm trying to debate which one to take.
Yeah. So we've each got about 5 picks left.
I guess I'm going to go with Andrew Gentry.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of been in the program for a while, waiting for his turn. Again, judging by how Michigan has developed offensive linemen, seems like he could be a good bet going forward.
Yep. No, I think he could be. And here's someone I'm pretty happy about getting this late. The second best defensive back on the team, Makari Page, who I think also can match up nicely with some of your dangerous options in Loveland, maybe in Klein, maybe if Edwards splits out. So it's a little matchup choice there. We'll go with Makari Page.
I see that. So I'm going to go with Quentin Johnson.
Oh, okay. Very good.
I mean, that guy, he can bring the thunder and really kind of made some plays, really stood out at a little bit of a, wouldn't equate him to Mikey Sandristel, but it seemed like anytime he was on the field, he was doing something. So
forced to fumble against Alabama. Michigan didn't end up scoring on that drive in the fourth quarter, but Bama was up 7 and could have put the game away when he sort of just halted that momentum, right? And that's a big. I mean, now especially with Rod Moore out.
Yeah, the big hit against Ohio State too.
Oh, big hit on second down to break up that pass, right?
Yeah,
it was like Emeka Buka, I think it was. Yeah, no, that's a good pick. I mean, and 6th-year guy, right?
Yeah,
ton of experience. Oh boy. So I have a secondary spot left, a defensive lineman spot left, a skill position. I think I'm going to round out this secondary I'm debating. It's my last spot. So I'm debating between. I mean, you've heard a lot of good things about Jair Hill. I'm going to go Jaden McBurrows. I think he can play the nickel. That's who they think is going to play the nickel. And just, again, more experience. Jair Hill might have a little higher upside when it's all said and done. Not might. He does have higher upside. But right now, for this spring game, I think Jaden McBurrows is still a step ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Rayshon Benny.
I have to throw a flag. Rayshon Benny is out. Rayshon Benny is still. You weren't there yesterday, and I haven't written it. We'll be writing it later. Freep.com. Check it out.
Okay.
Rayshon Benny is still out.
Okay.
Yeah, expect him back, and that's why I haven't taken him. So
okay. In the I was thinking. I don't know why I was thinking in the context of maybe just the team come the fall, but I mean, yes, obviously he's coming off the injury that he had in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, actually, well, we can let Andrew play moderator. Andrew, how do you feel? Do you think that's fair? I mean, we can let that go. It's just he's not healthy right now.
Will he be ready by the regular season?
I mean, they say he will be, but they said Will Johnson would be, and he wasn't quite. I mean,
I'm gonna rule in favor of the defense here. I'm gonna give the nod to Reiner. I think if he wants to pick a player who's injured, and he can, but I think if anything, you helped him out, Tony. If you want to change your pick, I think you can. But if you want to keep him, I'm fine with it.
I'll keep him, man.
Okay. Man, I really thought it's funny. I used my top 2 picks on the defensive line, then just didn't touch it, and I thought I had. And then your D line looks pretty nice there. With we'll go over it at the end. All right, so that leaves me with a defensive lineman, skill, or quarterback. I will go. I'm going to go with Kalel Mullings. We needed a running back.
That's your guy, too.
Kalel's my guy?
I feel like you're always talking about Kalel Mullings.
I am all for. You're right. And I mean, I think he gets the job done. He falls forward a lot. More than half of his runs last year were first downs or touchdowns. Reliable. He did have the fumble against TCU, but that was a couple years ago. Yeah, I'm a Kalel Mullings guy. That's fair.
Well, I like Kalel Mullings.
Yeah, no, he's a nice guy too. And just the journey, right? To go, I mean, linebacker, running back. I mean, he didn't just bounce back once. He went back and forth and back and forth.
Too. Yeah, he's a smart player too. I mean, to be able to do both it's tough. So.
And you've heard people who've said, I mean, one helps the other. I mean, well, certainly I think one helps the other. They both help each other, right? Yeah. The vision as a running back.
You can play him on both sides. You can play him on both sides.
I can. Now we have depth. All right, so I think that's Reiner. You got a few left.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Zeke Berry. I think that he's kind of the possibility. I think to replace Keon Sabb, Rod Moore. He's going to have to fill one of those probably safety spots, or definitely get more run. And they've been talking him up as a potential guy to do that. And so I think he has a chance to have a big impact this season for Michigan.
Yeah, right. And talk about someone who, just the way the depth chart ended up breaking down, right?
And also Nick and the nickelback position. They've also talked about him, filling Sanders Stills. So that's the thing. The safety guys have been used. I mean, at least in the first kind of version of this defense. Dax Hill was playing nickel too, and he was a safety at one point. So I mean, he seems somewhat interchangeable too.
It seems that they go safety to nickel more than outside, corner to nickel, yeah. Right? Yeah. That seems the way they've been doing that. I agree. Or obviously wide receiver transition with Samer still. Okay. That leaves me. I need a defensive lineman and I need a quarterback. I am going to take my defensive lineman. Oh boy. It's between TJ Guy and Inau Etta. I'm gonna go TJ Guy. We need that edge rushing. I got plenty of interior, right? So I will go TJ Guy. Nobody. I mean, by all accounts, he seems to be next in terms of the next new guy we'll learn in the edge room behind Moore and Stewart. So I'll go TJ Guy.
Okay. I'm going to go with Jaden Hood. He talked to him a week ago, and it seemed like he's, getting some, or it feels like he has a chance to, play some significant snaps this year. And so I need a linebacker, and he seemed like the most logical choice for that. So
does it seem like Jimmy Rolder's fallen out of favor? I've been meaning.
Yeah.
He seems a transfer candidate to me. That's nothing I've heard lately. Just I haven't heard his name this spring, and he really seemed like he was rising. I mean, and then you got Jaden Hood, and then you got Micah Pollard as well. So it's just that room's getting a little deeper. You got Samaj Bridgman, a younger guy. So you wonder. All right, my quarterback. I have been saving this because I did not know which quarterback I wanted to take. I will go with Jack Tuttle. I think if you look at my team, we're gonna be conservative. We're gonna ground you. We just don't want to turn it over. And I that's who I trust to take care of the ball the most. Which is why, you guys, we've heard me say this on this podcast, right? It's why I don't think anybody thinks that he or someone else, everybody feels like this is Alex Orji's job to lose. That's just the tenor I'm getting, and not that we get to see any of it. And they are certainly still letting this play out from everything I've heard. I just wouldn't write him down as the starter just yet. And it feels like a lot of people are. And so I'll take a shot with, I think Michigan might have to win in conservative ways, in just more experienced ways. So Tuttle.
That's good roster fit for you.
Thank you. Thanks, Coach. GM. Sir. Ryan?
I'm the analyst. I'm playing analyst.
Thanks, Kite. Thanks, Kite.
Yeah, you can call me Mel.
I guess to pick an offensive lineman, so it's going to be Jeff Percy, longtime veteran in the program. So solid option there. I don't know. Again, he's fighting it out for that job. So I think it's between Gentry and Percy, but probably.
How do you feel that chemistry will go on your team? I mean, they're battling for the same roster spot, and they're on your team.
Well, they now have two different. They're going to be manning two positions, so I think they're probably happy with it. Since they're guaranteed a starting spot. So. Yeah,
finally, at long last. All right. Okay, Andrew, you want to break this down?
Yeah. So, first of all, Michigan lost famously. Now, it's probably it's like the Matthew Stafford, Clayton Kershaw stat of this podcast, but 18 players from Michigan's team were invited to the NFL Combine. I don't know if you've heard that. But we just did a draft of 28 players, and it didn't feel like any of them were like, oh, geez, I don't know, maybe the second quarterback spot, right? But even then, Jack Tuttle was, veteran type guy who probably
that's what backup quarterbacks look like.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what a backup quarterback looks like. That was my first takeaway. Secondly, I like Reiner's team. I feel like he did get some value over Tony. But Tony stacking up, and probably because he got the first pick, quite frankly. I, for the record, wanted a rock, paper, scissors live to determine who got the first pick, but they decided backstage who got it. I think Tony's Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant against maybe the second tier offensive lineman compared to, Miles Hinton, Josh Prevey. I think Tony got the first two picks there. So I think those two guys, a nice conservative run style offense. Plus, you have Samaj Morgan on the outside and trick plays and Mullings running up the middle. I think Tony's team gets the job done in a head-to-head matchup with these two teams. But the fact that you could almost play a game actually between these two teams, Like let's not forget how crazy that is, because Michigan still has a ton of talent on this roster.
Yeah. I'll let Reiner make his argument against my team.
I would actually. I mean, I would pick Tony's team too, because I think I like the Grant and Graham picks up front, and
which we both would have done.
I probably could have taken Kenneth Grant when you took Graham, but I mean, looking at it, I felt like I wanted to take the best player available, and in that case, I thought it was Will Johnson. So I mean, it's tough. I mean, but I liked the thinking there. Also, like the idea of stacking the line like you did with getting some of the best linemen there.
Yeah, and I think because this is Michigan's strength, like the interior, right? Like taking more of their strength probably is maybe why all three of us think that that's the roster that won out. But Andrew's point, I think, is the great news for Michigan fans, because these are all members of one team. And I was getting nervous a little in the middle, because when I think about the versatility of your offense, right? I mean, there's not a lot on this. Like this offense feels pretty weak, and then you think about Colston Loveland, Donovan Edwards, and Marlon Klein all maybe split out in some sort of weird kind of formation. That's pretty tough to stop, right? Those are three guys who are 6'2" to 6'5", 200 pounds, run 4.4s. I mean, that's a lot of athleticism.
Orgy, a person who would have plenty of safety valves, and also guys that were big targets because accuracy issues. That was an issue with Joe Milton when Nico Collins didn't play in 2020. I think that actually had a huge impact on his performance, because when he opted out, they didn't have a big target receiver. And, with a guy who struggles with accuracy, I think that was an issue with Joe Milton. So that was the thought process with taking the tight ends.
No, it's the only. But then you fight the other side of it. I mean, neither of those are blocking tight ends, right? I think you needed one of them, maybe with Max Bredesen. Me taking Max, right. Really. I mean, with Donovan's vision, not what he's known for, we'll say, and then Loveland and Klein blocking, not quite what they're known for, and then with my front five of what is it? I mean, literally Michigan starting front five: Graham, Grant, Hausman, Barham, and then I guess Guy. That's a tall order. Yeah,
no, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I think, again, I'm banking on Orgy being able to kind of get outside and evade the pressure.
And I don't have a lot of speed on the line, although we know KG. We saw that play against that Penn State running against Katron Allen, right? It was the running back who it was when he just hawked him from 35 yards down the field, just like a freight train. Man, that was pretty remarkable play. All right, good stuff. So that is our spring draft, the spring game, once again at noon on Fox, televised. Will be interesting to see how many people actually make it there. I think I don't want to promise anything in the immediate, but I do know, I mean, we will both be there with a lot of coverage, and I think some takeaways. Here's some people I'll be watching. He wasn't drafted. I wanted to draft Ben Hall. I think Ben Hall is going to be a major, major piece of this team. Tyler Morris, not drafted, right? Frederick Moore, not drafted. Those might be three of the top 6 skill position players this year. I mean, there's a non-zero chance of that. And Peyton O'Leary, see if he's taken a step. We know what the defense is going to look like. It's going to be really, really good. I'm curious to see what this offense looks like. Last thought from you, what you're looking for, then I got to say thank you, and we got to get out of here.
I mean, the quarterback is a big question. I mean, what does it look like? I mean, can they complete passes consistently? What Colston Loveland's impact on the offense is. I mean, how much is he going to play? I mean, and it's also curious. I mean, like, how much is Michigan willing to show? I mean, and the transfer portal age. There's an argument to not show anything and not try to give anybody a chance to shine and cause other teams to want to covet them. So it's there's a lot of that going on too. There's a lot of hiding and secrecy. It's a bizarre world that we're in right now with college sports, where nothing seems permanent and everything seems very fluid one day to the next.
the mental gymnastics that are happening. It's just unbelievable.
How have I never thought about that with the spring game before? Why the heck am I showing off a hidden gem on my roster in the spring game so that another team in my conference, if I'm like Maryland or even on Michigan, if someone wants to go and be like, hey, new coach didn't recruit you, you're just setting yourself up. I never even thought about that before. So that's a very good point by Reiner.
Well, most spring games aren't getting aren't televised on Fox at noon. Like it's
right,
a big noon kickoff, right?
But I'm saying like anybody could probably get access to the game.
You're right.
They're all on BTN Plus. So if someone has the scouting department to go watch some of these games, or you know what I mean, they can easily they could be tracked down.
Yeah,
you're right. No, you're right.
That's why Mel Tucker at Michigan before, obviously he was like, really didn't run a spring game. I think that was part of the thinking there, was that he didn't want to put too much on tape as far as,
Isn't that what Jonathan Smith is doing? Something like that?
They're having a game. They said it's going to be a game, right, Reiner? They said they'd have.
They said there's going to be competitive football, but I don't think it's going to be a game per se. I mean, like, because of the other thing is like, a lot of teams are short on offensive linemen, so they can't really run, full game. And so
that was one problem for Michigan State one year. They had like 7 healthy offensive linemen. Right. Remember that a couple years ago under Mel?
Yeah. Unbelievable. And so like, so teams are
and then look at our draft. We got like Michigan just sent 6 offensive linemen to the NFL, and they got like 7 more guys you feel really great about. I mean, they're in a good spot. They're in a that's it was a pretty obvious point, right? But you just there's reminders, right? Even when we spent the first half of this episode like kind of some concerns and all these things, right? Everybody still wants to, not everybody, but 99% of the team still want to be Michigan, So, so they're in a great spot as it stands. All right, that's going to do it. Thanks to both you boys, Reiner Saban, Andrew Burkle. Thanks, of course, to our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery-Nichols, executive editor, Anjanette Delgado, sports editor, Kirkland Crawford, and audio engineer, Robin Chan. Once again, for Reiner, for Andrew, I'm Tony. Spring game, Saturday. Keep it locked to Hell Yes, thefreak.com, and thanks for listening.